Anyone who has ever tried to grow food or ground cover on rocky soil, well, understands the frustration instantly. The ground just refuses to hold moisture, roots hit stone within inches, and honestly, organic matter disappears faster than it can be added. Throughout history, rocky hillsides, mountain slopes, and post-eroded landscapes were considered wastelands, places where farming families kept goats instead of crops. Yet there have always been certain plants that mastered these environments. These species didn't just survive on rock, they slowly converted barren ground into workable soil. They were used in ancient terraces, monastery gardens carved into cliff sides, and even Cold War observation posts built on rocky mountain ridges where supply lines were unreliable. Today, hydroponic growers who transition back to land, or survivalists scouting new homestead plots, face the same question those old growers faced. What can you plant when you barely have soil? Before we get into the 5 secret species, here's the 1-minute hook that keeps viewers locked in. After medieval European wars, thousands of acres were stripped by soldiers, livestock, and fire. Much of the land turned stony and useless. Farmers who needed fast recovery planted not trees, not shrubs, but hardy pioneers, plants that wedge themselves between rocks, shatter small stones over seasons, and lay down the first microscopic layers of organic matter. These plants rebuilt soil where none existed. Fast forward to modern times, and the same species are still found thriving in cliffside villages in Greece, terraced mountains in Peru, and survival outposts in northern Asia. If you know these plants, you can reclaim land that looks completely unworkable to anyone else. Now let's break down the 5 secret species and how each one turns rock into living ground. The first plant succeeds on rock because its roots behave like natural chisels. Purslane has, well, an unlikely reputation. Many folks see it as a nuisance, yet very few truly understand its remarkable ability to colonize those hard, rocky surfaces where, honestly, nothing else seems to anchor. The shallow root system doesn't dig deep. Instead, it spreads wide, gripping into crevices and, creating the very first layer of biological cover. Purslane's value really lies in its resilience and its tendency to drop organic material at quite a fast rate. When it dies back or gets trimmed, it actually adds a surprising amount of biomass to the rocky surface. A practical method for using it is to simply scatter seeds over a rocky patch during warm weather, and then lightly brush them into the surface cracks. Historically, this plant held slopes together in Mediterranean regions where soil was almost non-existent. The second plant thrives on stone by creating its own nutrient zone around the root system. Sedum, especially hardy stone crop varieties, evolved specifically for rock faces and thin soil landscapes. It stores water in its leaves and, leaks sugars through its roots, feeding microbes that gradually soften the rock dust layer. Sedum was commonly used on fortress walls and monastery roofs, not really for decoration, but for the way it insulated and stabilized those hard surfaces. To apply it today, you just take cuttings or small plugs and press them into cracks or gravel beds. Sedum will root with astonishing speed, honestly. Once established, it begins depositing micro-layers of organic material beneath itself every year. And over time, that accumulated sedum soil becomes a valuable base for future plantings. The third plant handles rock by breaking down the mineral layer through chemical action. Yarrow is known for its medicinal history, but, well, its ecological history is even more impressive. It releases root compounds that help weather mineral surfaces, slowly turning grit into usable soil particles. This is one of the reasons yarrow appears early in the succession cycle on rocky sites after natural disturbances. It can establish where the ground is more stone than soil. One effective strategy is to plant yarrow at the edges of rocky terrain. Once rooted, it spreads outward, softening the ground over several seasons. Growers working with mountain plots often use a simple technique. Dig a shallow pocket between rocks, add a handful of dead leaves, and plant a small yarrow start. Within months, the area around the plant becomes noticeably more friable. The fourth plant dominates rock-covered land by sending roots deep enough to reach seams that other plants miss. Juniper, especially the creeping or low-growing types, is a classic soil maker on stone landscapes. Its roots probe deep fractures, pulling moisture from hidden pockets and over time slowly widening the cracks. Over the years, this action creates the first deep organic channels in what would otherwise be solid terrain. Indigenous communities in rocky regions of North America actually use juniper stands as indicators of future fertile patches because the plant engineers the groundwork for soil formation. If you want to apply this on your own land, plant juniper starts in the larger crevices or at the base of rocky inclines. Just give the roots time. Each year the plant expands its reach, stabilizing the rocks and trapping wind-blown dust, one of the earliest forms of topsoil. The fifth plant excels on impossibly rocky land because it captures airborne nutrients and builds mats of soil from nearly nothing. Moss is often overlooked, yet it is one of the earliest soil creators on rock faces around the world. It traps water, absorbs nutrients from rainfall and dust, and builds dense mats that eventually break down into real soil. Throughout history, moss-covered rocks have been the foundation layer for forests and fields. It appears first, prepares the ground, and, well, makes way for everything else. To use moss intentionally, just take a patch from a healthy area, place it on a damp rock, and press it gently. Moss doesn't need depth, it needs moisture and shade. That's really all there is to it. Once it takes hold, it thickens, traps more moisture, and accelerates soil development. After a season or two, the moss pad becomes a sponge-like base where herbs, grasses, and even small shrubs can root. It's quite remarkable, honestly. Together, these 5 plants, turn inhospitable rocky land into a living system that can actually evolve into productive soil. For someone reclaiming a rocky hillside, a workable sequence would be to let moss and sedum take the first layer, then follow with purslane. To add, well, bulk biomass, introduce yarrow to build soil chemistry, and finally anchor the long-term structure with juniper. This is the same natural succession that, over time, turned cliffside settlements across history into fertile terraces. If you found this guide useful and want more real field-tested knowledge on reclaiming impossible land, make sure to subscribe to Hydrohaven and share this video with others who want to grow where, frankly, no one else believes anything can survive.